For 2 years, I took care of the paralyzed female CEO, pouring everything I had into her recovery. And the moment she was back on her feet, the first thing she did was propose to her unforgettable first love, the guy who'd left her high and dry. The media ate it up, calling it a love story of undying devotion and ultimate union. I stood there in the square, staring up at the giant screen, silently watching the live broadcast of her proposal. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the ring I'd been carrying, and tossed it into the trash. The debt I owed her? It's finally repaid. Chapter 1. People on the pedestrian street froze, their eyes glued to the outdoor screens blasting the live proposal. It wasn't just here. Every screen in South City was showing the same thing. The image was crystal clear. You could even catch the faint shimmer of tears in her eyes. The setup screamed Gail Lou's handiwork. In those final months, when she was nearly fully recovered, she'd spent hours sketching out this exact design, even picking out the style of the fireworks herself. Back then, she'd lean against my chest, her eyes sparkling with anticipation, asking me what my favorite flower was. I told her hyacinth, but on that big screen, the proposal scene was drowning in a sea of fiery red roses, and the guy standing there wasn't me. It was Gail's ex-boyfriend Peter, the star designer. I stood there calm, watching as the proposal unfolded. Gail, in a white veil, tears streaming down her face, handed Peter the ring. The diamond in that black velvet box sparkled like a star, making the ring in my pocket feel like nothing. The girls next to me were squealing, totally caught up in the moment. Gail Lou, the female CEO of Lou Corporation, is so gorgeous. No wonder she was such a heartbreaker. Looks like the Playgirl's finally settling down. I heard someone else chime in. I heard Peter gave up everything to take care of Gail during those 2 years she was paralyzed. What a fairy tale romance ending in marriage. I clenched my wrist where faint gray scars still lingered from those grueling days of caring for Gail. Back then, Peter had dumped her and jetted off to Milan for his studies. The crowd held its breath as the proposal hit its peak. Gail lowered her head, gazing at the man kneeling before her, and choked out, "I do." The ring slid onto her finger. Peter stood and kissed her, and right on cue, fireworks exploded across South City's sky. This wasn't just a South City spectacle. Probably the whole country knew by now. That was Gail's style. When she loved someone, she wanted the entire world to know. The crowd buzzed with excitement, and the girl next to me, caught up in the hype, grabbed my wrist, squeezing it hard. "They're such a perfect match, don't you think?" I swallowed the pain shooting through my wrist and forced a smile. "Perfect." She noticed my pale face, let go awkwardly, and tried to apologize, but I was already turning away, weaving through the noise. Behind me, the giant screen showed the couple locked in a passionate kiss, the crowd cheering and screaming as fireworks lit up the night. I stopped by a trash can. For a moment, I crouched down to catch my breath, then stood, pulling the dull ring from my pocket. It was ugly, too tight, and now completely pointless. I tossed it into the trash, and a strange peace washed over me. Not a single tear fell. From now on, the debt I owed the Lou family, the debt I owed Gail, was repaid. Chapter 2. I got kicked out of Lou Corporation. I used to have my own office, but now I couldn't even find a desk. The HR department handed me a cardboard box. "Assistant He, all your things are in here," the woman said, lowering her voice. "President Lou personally asked you to leave. You'll get your compensation, so it's best to go quickly." She was being polite. I bet Gail's actual words were more like, "Kick him out." With those cold, fox-like eyes, she probably didn't even blink while saying it. I struggled to carry the box, and as I passed my old office, I realized who'd taken it over. It was now Peter's lounge, littered with his design drafts. Photos of him and Gail, looking all cozy, covered what used to be my meticulously planned schedule. I lowered my gaze, my knuckles whitening as I gripped the box's edge for a moment. Then I let go. Forget it. Chapter 3. I got pushed at the company's entrance, and the cardboard box tumbled, spilling my stuff all over the ground. The crowd was chaotic, and someone's high heel stabbed into the back of my hand, sending a sharp jolt of pain through me. Reporters and onlookers were swarming in one direction. I gritted my teeth and looked up, just in time to see Peter strolling arm in arm with Gail. He loves the spotlight. His hair was styled to perfection. But Gail, with her black hair and red lips, was even more dazzling. She doesn't like crowds, though. She turned her head slightly, clearly annoyed, but still played along, leaning into Peter's embrace. The reporters mobbed Peter, shoving microphones in his face, questions flying. "Mr. Wang, the Century's proposal has dominated the internet for a week. As the leading man, what do you have to say?" Peter flashed a smile. "I'm very grateful that during the 2 years when she was at her lowest, I was the one by her side." Gail Liu, the eldest daughter of the Liu family, had always had it easy, standing at the top. Only during those 2 years after her car accident, when she was paralyzed, did she see the world's coldness. No one was more qualified to call out that lie than me. Peter was the first to bail, leaving me to stay by Gail's side. But Gail seemed pleased, not correcting him, even indulging the lie. She lowered her eyes, smiling softly, helplessly, like a wildfire finally meeting a river and stopping in its tracks. Camera flashes went wild as the reporters gleefully captured their deep affection. Then Gail turned her head, her gaze ice cold as it locked onto me across the crowd. I met her eyes, smiling faintly, feeling oddly at peace. She frowned almost instinctively. Truth is, I'm grateful too. During those 2 years when she was at her lowest, I was the one by her side. My debt of gratitude is fully repaid. Chapter 4. The taxi I was waiting for never showed. I started feeling dizzy, a bit hypoglycemic with a gnawing stomachache. I crouched by the roadside, clutching my stomach. My hand, the one that got stepped on, was red, swollen, and bleeding, hurting like hell. To Gail, Peter really is special. I've known her for years. She's been the Liu family's golden girl since childhood, surrounded by rumors. But Peter was the only boyfriend she ever publicly claimed. A rekindled romance makes sense, I guess. A car horn blared in front of me. I looked up to see a black car pulling up. The window rolled down, revealing Gail's delicate face, her fingers tapping the steering wheel. "Stomach hurting again?" My eyelashes trembled. She sneered, her eyes dripping with mockery and disdain. "Serves you right." I lowered my gaze. It was like being thrown back 2 years when Gail treated me just as harshly. Back then, she'd said someone like me was lucky just to be alive. Now I see her tenderness later was all a facade. She was scared I'd leave and she'd have no one to care for her. I ignored her. Footsteps approached and Peter brushed past me, sliding into the passenger seat. "Gail, I'm late." "Those reporters were relentless. I shouldn't have let you go ahead. You could have helped me fend them off." As he buckled his seatbelt, he glanced at me, his voice catching, his face paling. He quickly urged, "Gail, let's go. We're running late for the party." Gail's brows furrowed slightly. I endured the pain, looked up at her, and figured this would be the last time I'd ever speak to her. I watched the engagement live stream. The scene was even more beautiful than the drafts you drew. Everything was perfect, except for the lack of hyacinths. I paused, then added, "I wish you both a long and happy marriage." Gail's smile vanished. Her hand on the window tightened, veins standing out, as if she hadn't heard a blessing at all. That hand wore her wedding ring. I looked away, missing whatever expression she gave me. Peter was quiet for a moment, then muttered, "Gail, it's getting late. Don't waste time on irrelevant people." A soft voice came from above me. "Michael, don't regret this," Gail said. She waited, but I didn't respond. She sneered, started the engine, and sped off. I looked up, catching only the tail of her black car, like the way she used to race sports cars. Even a blessing from me seems to piss her off for no reason. She's got issues, but I won't regret it. Chapter 5Y waited forever for a taxi that never came, resigned to my fate when my phone buzzed. A short message popped up. "Where are you?" I hesitated, then sent my location. Half an hour later, I was sitting in a business car, feeling stiff as I held out my hand. The girl in front of me, Vanessa, carefully treated my wounds, her eyes focused. "Does it hurt?" she asked, looking up. I tensed as she moved, shaking my head. "It doesn't." She lowered her head, blowing gently on my hand, the cool sensation easing the pain. I flinched and repeated, "I said it doesn't hurt." Only then did Vanessa let go, saying slowly, "Didn't hear you." In that moment, I felt like a loyal soldier secretly betraying my post. As Gail's constant shadow, I'd been there through all 10 of her fights, but with Vanessa, there'd always be an 11th. From schoolyard scraps to corporate wars, those two were mortal enemies. During Gail's paralysis, Vanessa nearly took her entire business. Even though I'm done with Gail, old habits die hard. Vanessa leaned back lazily. "There's a banquet tonight. I'm missing a male companion." I lowered my eyes as she finished treating my wound. "Will Gail be there too?" Vanessa nodded. I avoided her gaze, and after a long silence, I said, "If you're thinking of using me to hurt Gail, you might be disappointed. She won't care about me." My voice was soft, just stating the truth. Vanessa toyed with a lighter, its brief flash lighting up her knuckles. "Don't be so sure." I turned to the window, watching the streets blur by, and smiled. I remembered Gail at 17, laughing in front of all our friends, bold and cruel. "Michael," she'd said. "I could never like Michael." Chapter 6. Vanessa dragged me to get my hair styled and try on suits. She was there the whole time, her sharp eye rejecting over a dozen custom suits as not good enough. I didn't want to go to this banquet, but with Vanessa insisting, I didn't have much choice. Half a month ago, when I left the Liu family, I wasn't allowed to take a thing. Mrs. Lee from the Lee family took me in temporarily. So whatever Vanessa wanted, I tried to go along with. When I slipped into a silver-white suit, Vanessa's gaze finally settled. "This one." I caught my reflection in the mirror and froze. The guy staring back was both unfamiliar and familiar. He looked like the quiet kid who'd always stood behind Gail, unremarkable and easy to ignore, now suddenly sharp and striking, a version of myself I'd never seen. I reached out, cautiously touching the cold mirror. Vanessa walked over, adjusting my tie herself. I forget where I heard it, but a party's like a battlefield and every boy needs a suit. Michael, it's not about making them angry. It's about showing Gail that she's not just paralyzed, she's blind too. Chapter 7. This was my first time at a business banquet like this. Despite all the years by Gail's side, I'd never been her male companion. Vanessa and I arrived late. Just before we stepped into the banquet hall, I glanced at her. The hall's lights caught her profile for a moment, her delicate features almost glowing. A soft murmur spread around us, snapping me back. "Who's that guy with young Miss Lee? They look perfect together. Isn't Miss Lee known for never bringing a male companion?" Someone close to Gail stared at me, then swore under their breath. "Damn, isn't that Miss Lou's plain-looking assistant?" A wine glass shattered on the floor. I followed the sound. Gail stood nearby, her glass in pieces, red wine soaking Peter's suit pants. He let out a low yelp, but Gail didn't even glance at him. She just stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time, a little dazed. This version of me left her stunned, unfamiliar. Peter looked up, taking a moment to recognize me, his face full of disbelief. I nodded politely and started mingling with Vanessa. It was only then that Gail noticed the woman standing next to me. Her eyes, once so warm, grew colder by the second as she started walking toward us, reaching out to pull me away. Vanessa was quick, though. She raised her hand to block Gail and tugged me gently behind her. Gail's gaze slid past Vanessa, locking onto me. "Michael, come here," she said. I'd never taken anyone else's side in front of her before, let alone stood behind someone like this. Every time she called my name, no matter how far away I was, I'd always run to her. But now, things felt different. I didn't move an inch. Speaking as calmly and quietly as I always did with her, I said, "I've done enough over the years." The midsummer breeze drifted through the open windows. "Gail, we have nothing to do with each other anymore." Her face went pale, like the life drained out of it in an instant. Chapter 8. Midsummer's a season for crossing paths with new people. I was one of the kids sponsored by the Liu family. It wasn't just me. Ever since the earthquake, Gail's mom had been pouring her heart into rebuilding our county. But I didn't step foot in the Liu family home until I was 15. That year, I'd aced the county's high school entrance exam, and I went along with some county officials to deliver local specialties as a thank you to Mrs. Liu. She was exactly as gentle as I'd pictured her. She chatted with the adults about plans for the next year, all while juggling a million phone calls. She seemed swamped. I was standing off to the side when I caught sight of a photo on her desk. The girl in it looked about my age, with delicate features and this impatient expression, like she was annoyed at the camera. She had this rebellious, almost princess-like vibe. Then the butler knocked on the door, his face all troubled. "Madam, the young miss has gone out racing motorcycles again," he said. Mrs. Liu, still busy, just nodded absent-mindedly. "Go bring her back." The butler's face got even more worried, like it was no easy task. One of the adults gave me a nudge and laughed awkwardly. "Mrs. Liu, why not let Michael go with them? He gets along well with kids his age." That's when Mrs. Liu's eyes landed on me. I curled my fingers, summoning every bit of courage I had, and nodded. "I can do it." Even if I wasn't sure I could, I had to try. I followed the butler to West Mountain Road, where Gail was. She was only 17 then. Her black and red motorcycle roared through the wind, and she didn't brake until she was right up close. She lifted her helmet, revealing these gorgeous, lazy, cat-like eyes. "Hey, country boy, who are you?" she said. I shut my eyes, my face pale, thinking I was about to get run over. After a moment, I managed to say, "I'm Michael." Her curiosity sparked. Her next question was sharp. "Mrs. Liu told me to bring you back." Her face went cold. Gail wasn't the type to follow orders, but I was stubborn too. If she wasn't leaving, neither was I. I just stood there by the roadside waiting. She finished one lap and saw me. Second lap saw me again. By the third lap, she must have felt a little silly. Annoyed, she tossed her bike down and led me back. I trailed behind her, noticing how slender she was. The midsummer evening breeze felt soft. I locked her name in my memory, Gail. Chapter 9, Mrs. Liu wanted someone Gail's age to keep tabs on her, so she kept me around as Gail's sidekick, making sure she didn't get into too much trouble. Gail was deep in her rebellious teenage phase and really didn't like me. She saw me as her mom's spy. She went out of her way to make my life hard. In her words, "You're so annoying." Everyone knew Gail had a string of romantic flings, but there was always this quiet boy by her side, practically invisible, only stepping in when she got too reckless. I focused on studying hard, meeting Mrs. Liu's expectations, and staying close to Gail. That went on for 7 or 8 years, but I had a secret. The year I finished my college entrance exams, I was standing under a jacaranda tree while Gail leaned against the courtyard railing. She spoke so casually, but it felt like she'd reached into my chest and yanked out my heart, exposing my secret. "You like me," she said. I froze, unable to move for what felt like forever. Jacaranda blossoms fell around me, and it took a while before I heard my own voice, hoarse and rough. "Yes, I like you." Gail gave a small smile and walked away. That night, I went to find her. When I pushed open the door to the private room, I heard the eldest daughter of the Liu family sprawled on the sofa, laughing carelessly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it hit me like a punch, like everything inside me was breaking. "Who would like Michael?" "I like guys like Peter," she said. That was the first time I heard Peter's name. I was 2 years behind Gail and even skipped a grade in high school just to go to her university. But in that moment, I realized some things can't be won with effort alone. Chapter 10. The 15-year-old Michael who first met Gail could never have dreamed our relationship would still be this messy years later. Even at someone else's banquet, we could stir up drama, especially now at Gail's first event since her recovery. She and Vanessa had never gotten along, so the second they walked into the room, all eyes were on them. Now, facing off, everyone was secretly eating up the drama. I squeezed Vanessa's shoulder and said, "Let's go." Gail's eyelashes trembled, and I avoided her eyes. For the first time in all these years in front of her, I told someone else, "Let's go." We'd walked a good distance before I glanced back. Gail was still standing there, head bowed, fragile and cold in a way that reminded me of how she looked when she woke up after the car accident 2 years ago, back when Mrs. Liu, who'd been in the car with her, was already gone. Peter reached out to her, but one look from her stopped him cold. I gave a small smile. Vanessa asked, "What's so funny?" I answered softly, "I just realized not everyone can do it. Not everyone can handle Gail's dark moods or her spoiled temper. Not everyone, after seeing her at her worst, would still choose to stay by her side, especially when she was paralyzed. Gail, the proud daughter of the Liu family, couldn't accept being disabled. She stopped smiling, lost all her spark. And on top of that, her only family, Mrs. Liu, had died in that crash. Back then, Gail had no will to live and tried to end it all more than once. I smashed a glass, grabbed a shard, and pressed it hard against my wrist. "If you want to die, fine. I'll go with you," I told her. Gail had never seen me so fierce. She stared at me with those dark eyes for a long time, almost gritting her teeth, and promised, "Michael, I will get better." From that moment, she worked with the doctors. 2 years later, she stood up. Then she left her wheelchair behind. Chapter 11. After the banquet, I went back to the Lee family home with Vanessa. I've been so grateful for Mrs. Lee's kindness during this time. I've been busy putting together my resume, planning to move out as soon as I land a job. Honestly, Vanessa and I aren't that close. Every time we've interacted, it's been because Gail and Vanessa got into a fight, and I had to show up at the Lee family's place to apologize for Gail. Mrs. Lee always welcomed me warmly, fanning herself and saying, "Oh, it's no big deal. Kids fight sometimes. Come, sit down." I'd sit there awkwardly for hours, watching her put ointment on Vanessa's scrapes, while the afternoon sunlight poured into the room. It made me feel even guiltier. I never thought that when I needed help, it'd be the Lee family who'd step up. Vanessa and I aren't big talkers, so the car ride was super quiet. I felt uneasy, sitting up straight like some nervous schoolboy, my eyes glued to the road ahead. But when I glanced up, I caught Vanessa's reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked tired, her eyes closed, her long lashes making her seem almost childlike. For a split second, the neon lights outside lit up her face. She opened her eyes, catching me looking at her in the mirror. It was a little awkward, but not too bad. I looked away silently. Then Vanessa smiled and said, "Michael, do you know what I thought the first time I saw you?" How could I forget? She'd shouted it right in front of Gail. I nodded and said, "You asked me if I was blind. Otherwise, why would I follow Gail around?" Gail had been so mad she fought Vanessa again. Vanessa shook her head, then closed her eyes. Outside, the traffic stretched on forever. The car was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. But then I heard her soft voice. "I thought Gail must have found the dumbest guy ever." Though dumb, "You were very obedient." Chapter 12. It had been a while since I visited Mrs. Liu's grave. I brought a bouquet of white flowers to the cemetery to see her. Gail had recently taken over the Liu Corporation, and not long after, a runaway truck slammed into the Liu family's car, leaving one dead and one injured. Mrs. Liu was such a kind woman. Without her, I don't even know where I'd be today. I cleared the weeds from her grave and talked to her slowly. "Mrs. Liu, all the charities you cared about are still running smoothly, growing bigger every year. The foundation gets so many thank you letters they can barely fit in a room." I lowered my eyes, watching a drop of dew teeter on the flowers, ready to fall. Gail's paralysis has healed and she's just like she used to be. The Liu Corporation's back on track. She got engaged recently and the media went wild, calling it a once-in-a-century event. You'd know the groom too. It's Peter, the boy Gail once brought home. They're really in love and everything seems to be going well. Except for me. After all these years, I'm still stuck, no direction. The woman in the photo on the tombstone looked so gentle, like she heard every word I said. I touched the photo. "I've left the Liu Corporation." "Would you blame me?" Of course, there was no answer. The cemetery was silent. Death doesn't make a sound. I covered my face and tears slipped through my fingers. Except for those first few days, I haven't really been happy here. Sometimes I wonder if I hadn't been the top scorer in that high school entrance exam, maybe I wouldn't have come here at all. I cried quietly for a bit before gathering my things to leave. When I stood up, I saw someone standing nearby watching me. I didn't know how long they'd been there. I lowered my eyes. There was only one path out of the cemetery, and I had to pass by Gail. She must have come to see Mrs. Liu too, but our timing was awful. As I was about to walk past her, I heard Gail say, Crying at my mom's grave, you—" She didn't finish her mocking words. I turned and looked at her, tears still in my eyes. Gail swallowed whatever she was going to say. Truth is, Gail and I never had that bad a relationship. We've only had 2 real falling outs. Once, when I got tired of being her assistant and secretly sent out resumes, she found out and was furious. The other time was recent. She got an email, read it, and then kicked me out of the Lou family. One was before the car accident, the other after, 2 years apart. But I'm not as torn up as I was back then. I just looked at her quietly and asked, for the boy I used to be, Gail, did you really think that because I never showed my emotions, I wouldn't feel hurt? Did you really think that no matter how much you messed around, I'd always be that 15-year-old boy following behind you? Gail pressed her lips together, her eyes dark. Her hand by her side clenched and unclenched a few times before tightening into a fist. She smirked, all sarcasm, and said, Michael, you'll never be able to pay it all back. You killed my mom. Who are you trying to fool? Chapter 13, even on my way back, my mind was still foggy. Gail's last words hit me like a cold blade from her high and mighty perch. That car accident wasn't an accident. Guess who betrayed the Lou family? My inbox pinged with an email. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was evidence pieced together by Gail's people, all pointing to one thing. The car accident was no accident. Mrs. Lou and Gail were on their way to sign a major contract, and their whereabouts were top secret except to me. I was the only one who knew. I was Gail's assistant, raised by the Lou family. They'd always trusted me. Among the attachments was a photo of me meeting someone from a rival company. The timing looked damning, right before the accident. But the photo was fake. I didn't even know that person. In Gail's eyes, though, I was the only possible traitor. She didn't even bother asking me. She'd already convicted me in her head. I let out a bitter laugh, curling up in my seat. No wonder. No wonder she had me draw up proposal site plans one day and told me to get out the next. No wonder she'd rather run after Peter than have anything to do with me. I shut the email without even trying to defend myself, because I knew Gail wouldn't hear me out. The truth was, if she'd dug just a bit deeper, she'd have seen I wasn't the only one who knew where she was. Peter knew too. Chapter 14I hadn't slept this long in forever. Even before Gail's accident, I'd been quietly sending out resumes behind her back. Peter was just too much, and I was honestly exhausted. He was Gail's only official boyfriend, and she spoiled him rotten until he was insufferable. He especially couldn't stand me. Her other guy friends had given me grief before, but Peter? He was on another level. Can you believe a guy in his early 20s got called a gigolo in front of the whole company? Peter did that. It happened back when Gail was negotiating contracts, and she and Mrs. Lou were keeping their whereabouts under wraps, not even telling Peter. He couldn't get hold of her, but I knew where she was. When he asked me, I wouldn't tell him and even blocked him from getting into the chairman's office. Everyone at the company knew he was Gail's golden boy, but I was the only one brave, or maybe dumb enough to stand up to him. Peter made a scene, calling everyone over to watch as he slapped me across the face. And what did he say? Michael, even if you stripped naked in front of Gail, she wouldn't give you a second glance. Get out of my way. Then he sneered, You think clinging to the Lou family is going to pull you out of that dirt-poor county you came from? Always hanging around Gail, it's pathetic like some mistress? I hadn't done anything wrong, but in that moment, with everyone staring, I felt like I'd been stripped bare, humiliated. He stormed into the office and saw Gail's schedule. The next day, Gail and Mrs. Lou had their accident. I never suspected Peter. Gail and Mrs. Lou treated him so well. But now I get it. Only those who aren't loved carefully hold on to the kindness they're given, desperately trying to repay it. I'm that kind of person. Chapter 15, when I woke up, the world had flipped. The top trending topic on Facebook was South City Lou family car accident conspiracy. People love juicy gossip about rich families, especially since Gail's grand proposal had been all over the internet not long ago. Some insider spilled that Gail's car accident wasn't an accident at all. It was a planned attack by a rival group. They claimed Gail's assistant, some guy from a poor background who'd been sponsored by the Lou family for years, leaked her whereabouts. The post even had a picture of me meeting someone from the rival group, the same photo I got in my email. The accusations were laid out like they were stone-cold facts, like the person writing it saw everything themselves. Peter chimed in too, way more low-key than before, smiling softly for the camera. Michael, I never liked him, but he was always around Gail. I even fought with her about him. I never thought he'd do something like this. His interview dragged on, his words subtly painting me as a third wheel, an ungrateful leech, the classic poor guy betraying the rich family in some soap opera drama. Gail stood next to him, her face blank. I'd already seen the online comments. They took care of this assistant for years. And he turns out to be a traitor. Mrs. Lou must be devastated. Poor Peter. Having to deal with this assistant while dating Gail. Throw him in jail already! He shouldn't get away with this. Who can dig up where this guy's at now? What company would even hire him? I gotta say, it's wild that Peter and Gail made it through all this. True love wins. Someone suddenly yanked the phone out of my hands. I looked up and Vanessa was staring at my pale face. Stop looking at that. Grandma's calling us for dinner. My lips moved a little as I tried to explain. It wasn't me. Vanessa didn't even hesitate. I know. It wasn't just empty words. She really believed me. Chapter 16, just like the online comments predicted, every interviewer who seemed interested in hiring me suddenly ghosted. If I couldn't clear my name, I'd probably be done for good, socially dead, never able to find a job again. That's the kind of miserable fate Gail wanted for me, something to satisfy her anger. The only company still willing to take a chance on me was the Lee families, where I'd sent my resume along with a bunch of others. But I said no. Vanessa was flipping through my resume, not looking at me, and asked, "Why?" I shook my head. "My reputation's trash now. Any company that hires me will get dragged into the spotlight, and that'd be bad for the Lee family." Vanessa turned to me, studying me quietly for a moment before giving a small, resigned smile. "Michael, you're so dense." Dense about what? I stared at her, confused, but before I could say anything, the police showed up to take me away. The Lou family had reported me, and as a person of interest and suspect in the case, I was obviously getting hauled in for questioning. Before I stepped into the interrogation room, I saw Gail and Peter. Their faces said it all. Peter looked like a gambler betting everything he had. I got it. He'd covered his tracks so well over the past 2 years that any evidence was probably long gone. The only thing standing between him and Gail now was me. Once I was locked up, he could finally relax, knowing their grand proposal was real and their dream wedding would have everyone jealous. Gail's expression when she looked at me was harder to read. Her fingers were fidgeting, rubbing together, trembling slightly. She glanced at me, then turned away, her eyes red. I looked away and walked into the interrogation room. In just a few hours, the police had dug into every corner of my life. Besides that photo, there was more evidence pointing at me, way too conveniently, like it was all spun into a perfect trap. I was detained for 10 days. The Lou family car accident case had blown up online, with conspiracy theories spreading like crazy, and the authorities were taking it seriously. They'd pulled together a big team, determined to handle the case fairly and thoroughly, leaving no stone unturned. During those 10 days, I didn't think much. It had been ages since I'd rested so well, sleeping deeply and soundly. On the 10th day, the truth came out, and I was released without charges. The police found that, besides the rival group behind the attack on the Lou family, another person was involved, Peter. The net of justice is wide, and it doesn't let anything slip through. They cleared my name. The second I stepped out of the city police station, I was hit with a barrage of flashing lights so bright I could barely open my eyes. Reporters who'd been camped out pounced, shoving microphones in my face and firing off questions. "Mr. Michael, what do you think about the news that Peter was the one who betrayed the Lou Corporation?" "Mr. Michael, after all those years by Gail's side, was it because you had feelings for her?" "Mr. Michael, when Lou was paralyzed, Peter wasn't the one who stayed by her side. Who took care of her? Was it you?" I could barely breathe, but thankfully a hand pulled me away. Vanessa shoved a bunch of cheerful flowers into my arms and carefully led me to the car. As I got in, I glanced back at the chaotic media lights. I saw Gail standing in the distance, looking worn out and broken, her expression fragile. I answered the last question from the reporters in a soft voice. "No." The person who stayed by Gail's side then wasn't me. Chapter 17 in those 10 days, so much had gone down. The internet was first filled with curses and death wishes for someone like me, but then the truth started trickling out. The first wave hit when someone posted. The interviewers who'd rejected me started reaching out again, but I turned them all down, including the Lee family. I got a call from my hometown. The old principal of my middle school, a woman as respectable as Mrs. Liu, asked if I'd consider coming back to teach and help the county's education. I said yes. I made one last trip to the Liu family home. This time, no one could stop me. My old stuff was still there. I thought the room would be dusty, but when I opened the door, it was clean and bright, with sunlight spilling onto freshly folded flowers on the table. I packed quickly but paused when I opened the drawer. I reached into a hidden compartment and pulled out a photograph, an old one, taken with a cheap camera. The girl in it was full of life, her hair blowing in the evening breeze. She was laughing and messing around with her friends, but for some reason she'd turned back, like she was checking if the person behind her was keeping up. It was a photo I'd secretly taken of Gail when I was 17. Back then, I thought no one could capture the midsummer wind, but I could catch it in a picture. I didn't take the photo with me. I left it on the table, letting Gail decide whether to keep it or toss it. The jacaranda tree in the courtyard was blooming again, its branches drooping low. I stood there for a second, taking it in. Gail was behind me, calling my name softly, "Michael," like she was afraid of breaking a dream. I turned around and smiled at her, calm and at peace. Gail's eyes were dark and bruised, her face haggard despite all the skincare and makeup. As the eldest daughter of the Liu family, I'd never seen her look so careful, almost humble. Her eyelashes trembled and her voice was hoarse. Ever since I started recovering, I've been looking into the car accident. But when I found evidence pointing to you, I couldn't keep going. Just thinking about it made it hard to breathe. I never thought you'd betray us. Once that idea took hold, I couldn't shake it. She laughed at herself suddenly. You get it, right? People like us get betrayed all the time. We're used to being stabbed in the back. But when it was you, I couldn't handle it. Do you know what I thought when I was going through that evidence? I wished I'd just died in that car accident. After that, I lost it and did all those awful things. The grand proposal. It was all for you to see, she went on, spilling her inner struggles. But I just looked at her, my eyes clear, and softly cut her off. No, Gail froze. I smiled faintly. You already knew you were wrong when you did it, but you thought it didn't matter. Whether it was right or wrong, whether my betrayal was real or just a misunderstanding, no matter what you did, you believed I'd forgive you. The truth is, I always knew that if Gail hadn't been paralyzed and abandoned by everyone, she wouldn't have noticed me. Her eyes were always on guys like Peter. Even the ring she gave me didn't fit. She was quiet for a long time, and I thought it was just the shadow of a leaf hitting the ground. But it was Gail's tears. She reached out, grabbing my wrist, pleading, "I've been a jerk. One last time, can you forgive me?" The jacaranda tree cast its dappled light and shadow. I remembered years ago when I was 17, Gail leaning against the railing, smiling lazily. "Michael, do you like me?" But now, I thought for a moment, then gently pulled her hand away. "I won't forgive you." She saw the grayish-brown scar on my wrist. Her eyes widening, her lips trembling, but she couldn't say a word. I spoke patiently, like I was soothing a kid. "Gail, your life was saved by Mrs. Liu in that car accident. You need to live well. The Liu Corporation was her life's work, and you need to protect it. I'm leaving here." Gail's face went deathly pale, like all the color drained out. In that moment, it was like her heart had been gutted. Someone she'd always taken for granted was walking away for good. The midsummer wind never looks back. Chapter 18. Lately, South City's been a mess. The once celebrated couple from the grand proposal is now labeled a scumbag and a disgrace. Peter's crimes are out in the open, and Gail's seen as his accomplice. The Liu Corporation's stock has tanked, and for some reason, Gail crashed her car, broke her leg, and is now stuck in a wheelchair. I was on a bus back to my county when I got a message from Gail. She said, "I'll repay everything I owe you." I blocked her number without a second thought. I turned to look out the window, the scenery blurring by. The bus window reflected the person next to me, Vanessa, who's apparently into napping now, leaning back with her eyes closed. She's the CEO of a big company, yet she insisted on donating school supplies and even hopped on this rickety bus with me. The bus swayed and Vanessa's head landed on my shoulder, but she didn't wake up. I smiled softly. Looking out at the changing scenery, I felt this unshakable certainty. I was about to embrace countless midsummers of my own.